You click this video to finally understand Solaire of Astora, the jolly knight in golden armor who became Dark Souls' most beloved character, and whose quest for his own son ended in tragedy. Tonight, I'm going to tell you Solaire's complete story, who he really was, why he was searching for the sun, what the sunlight maggot did to him, and why his journey is one of the saddest tales in the entire Dark Souls universe. If you enjoy this, please consider liking and subscribing. It tells me you'd like more deep dives like this. Lordran is a land built on a foundation of disparity. Before the gods arrived, the world was a featureless place of grey crags and immortal dragons. It was a state of permanent sameness that had no concept of life or death. Everything changed when the first flame appeared in the bowels of the earth. This fire brought the first division, creating the heat and light that made a meaningful world possible. It was this flame that allowed Gwyn to find the soul of light and become the architect of a new age. He built a civilization of gold and marble that sat above the clouds, a physical declaration that the age of fire had begun. But the fire was never meant to last forever. The tragedy of Lordran is that its creator understood from the beginning that his era would eventually fade. Gwyn feared the coming dark and the age of humanity that was supposed to follow. To prevent this, he turned the world into a machine designed to sustain the fire at any cost. He sacrificed himself to the flame, becoming the first Lord of Cinder. This act extended the Age of Fire for another 1,000 years, but it was a temporary reprieve. The world Solaire enters is the result of this desperate choice, a kingdom that has been rotting for a millennium. The fading of the flame is not just a natural event, it is a slow collapse that brings the Undead Curse with it. As the fire dims, the boundaries of the world begin to fail. The kingdoms that once thrived under Gwyn's sunlight are now ruins filled with the wandering spirits of those who cannot die. It is a landscape of deterioration where the living are a rarity and the hallowed are the rule. This is the cost of the cycle that Gwyn established, a mechanism that gets more expensive every time it runs. It is a world that keeps being forced to begin again, despite its obvious exhaustion. Gwyn's fear of the dark shaped every major decision he made in the twilight of his age. He established the Way of White to carry his values into the mortal realm, and manipulated the undead into serving his cycle. He used the prophecy of the chosen undead to funnel powerful souls toward the kiln. This created a culture of sacrifice where the people were seen as fuel for the fire. The world was no longer a place for the living, but a factory for the preservation of a god's legacy. Solaire arrives in this broken land long after the original glory has vanished. The atmosphere of Lordran is one of heavy melancholy. Every castle and every forest is a monument to something that has already been lost. The gods have either fled, gone mad, or burned themselves to ash. The few who remain are often illusions or husks of their former selves. It is a place where hope is a dangerous thing, because it usually leads to a dead end. The world has run out of options, and the people living in it are simply waiting for the inevitable. It is into this specific despair that Solaire carries his own light. Solaire's journey is a response to this fading reality. While others flee the darkness or hide in their homes, he marches toward the center of the collapse. He doesn't seek to merely survive the end of the world. He seeks to find a personal son that can replace the one that is currently dying. His quest is an act of defiance against a world that has decided to give up. By choosing to enter Lordran, he is stepping into a machine designed to consume him, yet he does so with a smile. It is the ultimate expression of faith in a land where the gods have already failed. The Undead Curse is the defining tragedy of the human condition in the Age of Fire. It appears as the dark sign, a ring of fire burned into the skin that signifies a fundamental change in the person wearing it. From the moment it appears, that person is undead, and they no longer have a say in their fate. They can die, but they will always be resurrected at the nearest bonfire. This sounds like a gift, but the games confirm it is a punishment. Every time an undead returns from death, they lose a little more of themselves. This process of erosion is known as hollowing. It's not just a physical decay, but a psychological one. The curse takes your memories and your purpose slowly, which is worse than taking them all at once. You lose the souls you were carrying and the humanity you had gathered, and something more subtle goes with it. A hollow is the end state of this process. A being who has died so many times that they've stopped being recognizably human. They wander the ruins, attacking anything that moves because there's nothing left of whoever they were. The only confirmed way to resist hollowing is to maintain a strong purpose. Undead who have a goal or a reason to keep moving can hold on to their lucidity longer than those who lose one. We see this in characters like blacksmith Lenegrast, who remains functional because he is anchored by his craft. For Solaire, his purpose is his quest for the sun. Every conversation he has is a deliberate effort to keep the horror of hollowing at bay. He speaks with warmth and conviction because he knows that if he stops believing in his goal, he will become just another mindless corpse. Hollowing is a personal stakes game rather than just a mechanical one. It's the feeling of slipping away while you're still alive. Characters like Lucatiel of Mirror show us the pain of this process as she begs people to remember her name. She's afraid she'll forget it herself before the end. Solaire faces this same pressure every day he spends in Lordran. The curse doesn't just damage the individual, it damages the world by the sheer weight of its accumulation. Asylums are built to contain the undead, but eventually the entire world becomes an asylum. The curse is often connected to the fading of the first flame. As the light dims, the curse spreads more aggressively, creating a cycle of suffering that feeds the dying fire. Some suggest that Gwyn himself was involved in spreading the curse to generate fuel for the kiln. Whether this is true or not, the result is a world where being a person is a temporary state. Hollowing is what happens when a person simply runs out of reasons to keep being a person. It is the ultimate expression of the world's exhaustion. Solaire's journey is a race against this inevitable clock. He isn't just looking for the sun for the sake of a holy mission. He is looking for it to save his soul. Without the sun, he has no purpose, and without purpose, he will hollow. This gives his character a layer of desperation that sits just beneath his cheerful exterior. Every jolly cooperation is a way to prove he is still himself. Every encounter with a stranger is a chance to reaffirm his humanity before the dark sign takes it all away. Time in Lordran is not a straight line. The fading of the fire has caused the flow of time to become stagnant and distorted. This phenomenon is why heroes from different eras can overlap, and why the world feels like it's collapsing in on itself. The land of Lothric is described as a place where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge, suggesting that space and time are physically pulling together as the cycle reaches its end. In Lordran, this manifests as a world where the past and the present are no longer separate. You are never truly alone, even in the most isolated ruins. This breakdown of reality is what allows Solaire to appear across wildly different moments in the story. He is a traveler between these overlapping worlds, a man who understands that the boundaries between people are thinner than they seem. He explains this to the player early on, noting that the flow of time is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out. This isn't just a convenient explanation for multiplayer mechanics. It's a fundamental part of the lore that describes a world that is losing its grip on the laws of physics. The white sign, soapstone, is the physical manifestation of this cosmological breakdown. Solaire hands this item to the player, explaining that it allows an undead to cross the gaps between worlds to offer assistance. When you see a summon sign on the ground, you are looking at a tear in the fabric of time. By using it, you are pulling a version of another hero into your own reality. This mechanic represents Solaire's entire philosophy. He believes that because the world is breaking, we have a unique opportunity to help one another across the void. This fragmentation of time means that Solaire's own journey is happening in parallel to yours. Every time you meet him, he is at a different stage of his own quest in his own version of Lordran. He might be resting at a bonfire in his world while he stands on a balcony in yours. This creates a sense of shared struggle. You aren't just a lone undead trying to save the world. You are part of a massive, overlapping community of travelers who are all facing the same hollowing fate. Solaire is the one who makes this connection explicit and intentional. The lore suggests that this state of perpetual repetition serves the structure of the age rather than the people. It's a cursed existence where nothing ever truly resolves. It just keeps happening. This creates a sense of fatigue that permeates the entire trilogy. By the time of Dark Souls 3, the system is breaking down because the people required to keep it functioning have stopped being willing to participate. Solaire, however, is one of the few who finds joy in this broken system. He sees the overlapping worlds not as a curse, but as a chance for cooperation. For Solaire, the convoluted time of Lordran is the only thing that makes his quest possible. It allows him to find allies where there should be none. It allows him to reach out to you, a stranger from another world, and offer a hand. The soapstone is more than a tool. It's a bridge. In a world that Gwyn built on fear and isolation, Solaire uses the very collapse of that world to build connections. He takes the evidence of the world's end and turns it into the foundation of his faith. Astora is a land that is mentioned with great respect throughout the series. It's known as a kingdom of devout knights, holy missions, and a deep worship of the light. The items that come from Astora often have high faith requirements, reflecting a culture that values spiritual conviction as much as physical strength. It's a place of high ideals and noble goals, a sharp contrast to the grim reality of Lordran. The Knights of Astora are often sent out on pilgrimages to fulfill ancient prophecies, carrying the values of their home into the wider world. And we see the weight of this heritage at the very beginning of the journey. Oscar of Astora is the one who rescues the player from the Northern Undead Asylum, fulfilling a family legend. He is a dying man, yet he spends his final moments ensuring that someone else can carry on the mission. He wears the elite knight set, which bears the crest of Astora. This same crest is carried by Solaire. This connection is vital. It tells us that both the most hopeful character and the most tragic opening character come from the same cultural background. They are both driven by the same knightly code. What does it mean that these two men share an origin? It suggests that Astora is a land that produces individuals who are willing to sacrifice everything for a cause. Oscar dies so that you may live, and Solaire lives so that he may find a new son. They are both fueled by a faith that survives even the most dire circumstances. In a world where most kingdoms have already collapsed into hollowing and madness, Astora's knights are still trying to do what they believe is right. They represent the last remnants of a chivalric age that the rest of the world has forgotten. The worship of light in Astora is likely a variation of the Way of White, the religious institution established by Gwyn. This means their faith is rooted in the history of the gods, even if those gods are no longer present. They are praying to a legacy of sunlight that is thousands of years old. This heritage gives Solaire his foundation. He isn't just some random traveler with a dream. He is a product of a society that believes the light is worth fighting for. His obsession with the sun is a logical extension of the culture that raised him. The tragedy of Astora is that its noble knights are often sent on impossible tasks. Oscar failed his mission and died in a cold cell. Solaire's mission takes him into the deepest pits of the earth, where the light never reaches. Their home kingdom is eventually destroyed, but its influence lives on through the actions of its survivors. The elite knight armor becomes a symbol of the struggle against the curse, a reminder of a kingdom that stood for something before the dark took over. Solaire carries that weight on his shoulders as he walks through the ruins of Lordran. Solaire is the most prominent representative of Astora's spirit. While Oscar's story is short and bitter, Solaire's is long and winding. He takes the faith of his people and personalizes it. He doesn't just worship the sun because his kingdom told him to. He worships it because he has decided it's the only thing that matters. This personal conviction is what separates him from the other knights. He is not just following a mission. He is living a philosophy. He is the last true knight of a kingdom that specialized in producing heroes. Most undead in the world of Dark Souls are victims of a fate they never asked for. They wake up with the dark sign and are immediately cast out of society, imprisoned in asylums to wait for their inevitable hollowing. The curse is a mark of shame and a source of profound terror for the average human. People will do anything to avoid it, and kingdoms will build walls to keep it away. To be undead is to be a pariah, a creature that is no longer part of the natural order of life and death. It's a slow death sentence that strips away everything you ever loved. Solaire of Astora is different. The law confirms that he did not catch the curse by accident or through a cruel twist of fate. He chose it. He deliberately sought out the dark sign, inviting the brand of the undead onto his own flesh so that he could journey to Lordran. This is a detail that changes how we view every action he takes. He wasn't some poor soul trying to find a cure. He was a man who saw the curse as a passport. He understood that only the undead could enter the land of the gods and survive long enough to fulfill a grand purpose. What kind of obsession drives a person to embrace a fate that most would die to escape? For Solaire, the answer is simple. His quest for the sun was more important to him than his humanity, his home, or his life. He looked at the slow decay of the world and decided that a normal human existence was no longer enough. He needed to be something more, something that could withstand the crushing weight of Lordran's history. By becoming undead, he gained the immortality required to chase a dream that might take centuries to realize. This choice shows the intensity of Solaire's character. He is not just a jolly companion. He is a fanatic. His cheerfulness is a mask for a terrifyingly focused mind. Imagine the willpower it takes to stand still and let the fire burn the dark sign into your skin. Imagine walking away from everything you knew, knowing that you will never be allowed back and that your only future is a slow decline into madness. Solaire did this willingly because he believed that somewhere in the ruins of the gods he would find a light that was worth the price. His voluntary hollowing process is a unique form of martyrdom. Most undead fight to stay human because they are afraid of what they will become. Solaire fights to stay human because he needs his mind to find his son. The curse is a tool he is using, but it's a tool that is constantly trying to eat him. Every time he helps a player, every time he prays at an altar, he is fighting the very fate he chose for himself. He is a man who jumped into a fire because he wanted to see what was at the center of the flames. This changes the context of his journey. He isn't a victim of the cycle, he is a participant who entered by his own hand. This makes his eventual struggle even more poignant. He gave up everything for a specific goal, and that goal is the only thing keeping him from becoming a mindless monster. If he fails, he hasn't just lost a quest, he has lost the gamble he made with his soul. He is a man on a high wire with no safety net, and he is the one who cut the net himself before he started walking. Part 6. To find my very own son. What does that actually mean? When you first meet Solaire on the promontory in the Undead Burg, he speaks a line that has become one of the most famous in the series. He tells you that he came to Lordran to find his very own son. This phrasing is beautiful and deliberately vague, and it has sparked a decade of debate among scholars of the lore. He doesn't say he is looking for the sun in the sky. He uses a possessive term, his son. This suggests that his quest is not for a celestial body, but for something deeply personal and unique to him. There are several interpretations of what this actually means. For some, it represents a search for divine validation. Solaire is a man of intense faith who is looking for a sign from the gods that his life has meaning. In a world where the gods have abandoned their thrones, finding a personal son would be proof that he is not alone. For others, the sun represents legacy. Solaire wants to achieve something so great and so bright that it will shine forever, even after he is gone. He is looking for a way to leave a mark on a world that is designed to erase everyone. A more literal interpretation suggests that Solaire is looking for a source of power or a state of being. He wants to become a beacon of light himself, a literal sun in a world of darkness. This ties into the later revelations of his character, where he is willing to do anything to achieve that inner glow. Whatever the meaning, the phrase, "my very own son," implies a search for something that he alone can claim. He isn't looking for a shared religion or a common goal. He is looking for a private salvation that will justify the terrible price he paid to get to Lordran. The tragedy of this line is that the sun is, by definition, something that belongs to everyone. It is the ultimate shared resource. By trying to find his own son, Solaire is attempting to claim something that cannot be owned. He is looking for a version of reality that doesn't exist. This highlights the gap between his noble intentions and his growing delusion. He is a man who loves the sun so much that he wants to hold it in his hands, but the sun is too big and too far away for any one person to possess. His dialogue is filled with this kind of earnest but confusing imagery. He talks about being a son and finding his son almost interchangeably. This suggests that his goal is evolving as he travels. What started as a holy pilgrimage is slowly turning into a desperate search for identity. In a world where the undead lose their names and their memories, having your own son would be the ultimate anchor. It would be a piece of yourself that the curse could never take away. It would be the thing that makes him Solaire instead of just another hollow. Ultimately, the phrase is a testament to Solaire's humanity. Even in the face of a cosmic collapse, he is still looking for something that belongs to him. He is still trying to define himself on his own terms. He isn't satisfied with being a knight of Astora or a warrior of sunlight. He wants to find the thing that makes his specific existence meaningful. This search is what makes him so relatable to the player. We are all looking for our own sun in the darkness of Lordran, trying to find a reason to keep moving when everything else is falling apart. The Warriors of Sunlight is the covenant that Solaire either founded or carries into the modern era. Its primary focus is jolly cooperation, a term Solaire uses to describe the act of helping others through the trials of Lordran. In a land where every other faction is self-serving, secretive, or predatory, the Warriors of Sunlight stand out as a radical anomaly. Their philosophy is simple. The highest calling of an undead is to help a stranger across the boundaries of time and space. They don't seek power or souls or territory. They seek only to be of service. This ideology is almost revolutionary in a world built on Gwyn's fear and isolation. Gwyn's age was defined by hierarchies and walls, but Solaire's covenant is defined by bridges. When a warrior of sunlight is summoned, they appear as a gold phantom, a color that represents the light of the sun and the warmth of a shared burden. This gold glow is a sign of hope for players who are struggling through the game's many horrors. It tells them that they are not alone and that there is someone willing to fight by their side for no other reason than it's the right thing to do. The Covenant's philosophy is rooted in the idea that we are all travelers in the same broken world. Because time is convoluted, our paths will inevitably cross, and in those moments, we have a choice. We can ignore each other, we can fight each other, or we can help each other. Solaire chooses help every single time. He sees cooperation not just as a tactical advantage, but as a moral imperative. By helping someone else succeed, he is reaffirming his own purpose and resisting the hollowing that comes from despair. The gold phantom is a powerful symbol in the lore. Gold is the color of the gods and the sun, but in Solaire's hands, it becomes the color of friendship. He takes the divine imagery of Anor Londo and uses it to bless the lowliest of undead. This is a subtle subversion of Gwyn's religious order. Gwyn used the light to demand obedience, but Solaire uses it to offer support. The Warriors of Sunlight are a grassroots movement that has replaced the distant worship of gods with the immediate practice of kindness. For Satyrs of the Sun, the reward for cooperation is a sunlight medal. These medals are not valuable in a traditional sense. They are simple tokens of a job well done, a reminder of a successful partnership. They are a currency of merit in a world that usually only values souls. By collecting these medals, the warriors are building a community of shared experience. They are proving that even at the end of the world, humans are still capable of building something together. This is the jolly part of the cooperation. The genuine joy that comes from making someone else's journey a little easier. Solaire is the living embodiment of this covenant. He doesn't just preach cooperation, he lives it. Every time you summon him for a boss fight, he is putting his own journey on hold to help you with yours. He fights with a bravery that is infectious, encouraging the player to keep going when things seem impossible. He is the heart of the Dark Souls experience because he represents the best of us in the worst of places. He proves that even in a world that is literally dying, we can still choose to be kind. The Sunlight Altar in the Undead Parish sits in a state of quiet ruin. It's a broken monument tucked away behind a bridge guarded by a dragon, a place that the world has largely forgotten. When Solaire stands before it, he isn't just praying to a general concept of light. He's honoring a specific figure who was deliberately erased from the history of the gods. This altar represents the firstborn son of Gwyn, a god of war who was stripped of his status and his name for his foolishness. Solaire worships at the base of this shattered statue without fully knowing the identity of the being he's addressing. It's a poignant image of faith, continuing even after the object of that faith has been deleted from the records. The fragments of lore around this point toward a deep connection between Solaire's personal mission and this lost deity. The firstborn was the original leader of the Sunlight Warriors, and his exile meant the end of his formal worship in the Golden City. By praying at this ruin, Solaire is keeping a forbidden fire alive. He doesn't care that the statues are smashed or that the name of his god is a secret. He finds value in the wreckage. This suggests that his faith is not dependent on the approval of the current religious institutions. He's looking for a truth that existed before the world started to rot, even if that truth is buried under layers of shame. The symbol of the covenant is the sun, but it isn't the sun of Gwyn's era. It's the son of a warrior who chose to side with the dragons or pursue a path that the other gods couldn't tolerate. Solaire wears this symbol on his chest, painted by his own hand. He isn't wearing the official vestments of a holy order. He's wearing a tribute to a forgotten father. This makes his quest much more personal than a standard pilgrimage. He's searching for a connection to a power that has been expunged from history. He's a lone knight trying to resurrect a feeling that the world has tried to bury. The state of the altar itself is a mirror for Solaire's own journey. It's weathered, neglected, and isolated from the rest of the civilization. Yet, it still holds a certain power for those who know how to look for it. Solaire finds comfort in these ruins because they are honest. Unlike the grand illusions of the gods, a broken altar doesn't hide its flaws. It's a place where a knight can be honest about his own struggles. Solaire's prayers here are a quiet defiance against the fading of the light. He is choosing to see the sun where everyone else sees only stone and shadow. His relationship with the forgotten god is one of pure devotion. He doesn't ask for power or wealth. He asks only for the strength to find his own sun. This reflects the original purpose of the Sunlight Warriors, which was to offer protection and strength to those in need. Solaire is carrying the torch of an ancient tradition that has lost its home. He's a man without a temple, so he makes the world his temple. Every time he kneels at the broken altar, he is proving that a god's legacy isn't found in a name, but in the hearts of those who still believe. The tragedy of his worship is that he is looking for a sun that has already been eclipsed. The god of war is gone, and the fire he represented is cold. Solaire is chasing a memory that he doesn't even fully possess. This gives his character a layer of historical weight. He's not just a man in a world of monsters. He's a survivor of a theological collapse. His quest is a way to bridge the gap between the glorious past and the miserable present. He's trying to find a sun that can shine as brightly as the one that was lost at the beginning of the age. Section 3. The First Meeting and What Solaire Teaches the Player. Part 9. The Bridge After the Taurus Demon Meeting. Solaire for the first time is a pivotal moment for any traveller in Lordran. After the narrow escape from the Taurus demon and the fire of the bridge dragon, you find him standing on a stone promontory. He's staring directly into the sun, his body relaxed and his posture open. He doesn't draw his sword or hide in fear. He stands with his arms wide, embracing the light in a land that has offered you nothing but death and silence. Miyazaki designed this encounter to be a sudden breath of air. The confirmed details suggest that Solaire's placement here is a deliberate gift to the player. His immediate warmth is a radical shift from the cold indifference of every other character you've met. Most people in Lordran are either trying to kill you or are waiting for you to die. Solaire is the first person who treats your journey as something shared rather than a lonely march to the grave. So he offers his help before you even have to ask for it. This interaction establishes a bond of trust that is rare in the series. He's a beacon of humanity in a place that is designed to strip it away. His presence on that balcony is the first sign that you might actually survive this ordeal. The visual of Solaire staring at the sun is iconic for a reason. It shows a man who has found peace in the middle of a nightmare. While the rest of the world is focused on the dirt and the blood, he is looking upward. This tells the player everything they need to know about his character. He's a man of vision and hope. He doesn't ignore the dangers of the world, but he refuses to let them define him. By standing there with him, you're invited to take a moment of rest. You're reminded that even in a cursed land, there is still beauty to be found if you're willing to look for it. Solaire's dialogue in this meeting is filled with a genuine kindness that feels almost out of place. He speaks of the sun with a passion that is infectious. He calls it a wondrous body and a magnificent father. This language is not the language of a cynical knight. It's the language of a lover. He's enamored with the light, and he wants to share that love with you. He's not interested in your background or your soul. He only cares that you're a fellow traveler. This creates a sense of equality that is fundamental to the philosophy of the Sunlight Warriors. The location of this meeting is also strategic. It's right before the first major difficulty spike of the game. Miyazaki knew that the player would be feeling overwhelmed and exhausted at this point. Solaire is there to offer a hand. He's the physical manifestation of the game's cooperative mechanics. He represents the idea that you don't have to face the darkness alone. By meeting him here, you learn that the world is more than just a series of obstacles. It's a place where you can find friends and allies in the most unexpected places. This first meeting sets the tone for the rest of Solaire's story. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated hope. You haven't seen his doubt yet. You haven't seen his descent. You only see a man who is happy to be alive and happy to help. He gives you the tools you need to connect with other players, effectively opening the door to the entire community. Solaire isn't just a character, he's a mentor. He teaches you that the only way to endure Lordran is to reach out to someone else. He's the heart of the journey, standing on a balcony and waiting for a friend. Part 10. The White Sign, Soapstone, and the Overlapping Worlds. When Solaire hands you the White Sign Soapstone, he's doing more than just giving you a gameplay item. He's explaining the fundamental reality of the world you're living in. What the games establish is that the flow of time in Lordran is distorted and stagnant. Heroes from different eras and different versions of the world are constantly phasing in and out of existence. This means that your journey is not a solitary one. You are surrounded by thousands of other travelers who are all facing the same trials. The soapstone is the key that allows you to reach across the void and touch their lives. Solaire's explanation of the soapstone is one of the most important pieces of dialogue in the game. He tells you that worlds overlap and that the boundaries between them are thin. He encourages you to use the stone to offer your help to others. This is a gift of philosophy. He's telling you that the best way to spend your time in a collapsing world is to be of service. He doesn't see the fragmentation of time as a disaster. He sees it as an opportunity. It's a way for us to find companionship in a place that should be empty. The soapstone represents the idea of a shared burden. When you put your sign on the ground, you are making a promise to a stranger. You're saying that if they need help, you will be there. This is the essence of jolly cooperation. It's a selfless act that requires nothing in return. Solaire's belief in this system is absolute. He doesn't care about the rewards or the recognition. He only cares about the connection. By giving you the stone, he's inviting you to join his movement. He's inviting you to be a light in someone else's darkness. This item also anchors the multiplayer mechanics firmly in the lore. It's not just a menu option. It's a physical object with a history and a purpose. The fact that Solaire is the one who gives it to you is significant. He's the patron saint of cooperation. He's the one who understands the value of a helping hand better than anyone else. The soapstone is his legacy. Every time a player summons another, they are honoring the lesson that Solaire taught them on that balcony in the Burg. They are proving that even a broken world can be a community. Solaire's perspective on the overlapping worlds is remarkably positive. While others might find the confusion of time to be terrifying, he finds it comforting. He likes the idea that heroes are constantly crossing paths. It makes the world feel alive and vibrant. It gives him hope that even if he fails in his world, he might succeed in yours. The soapstone is a tool for empathy. It allows us to step into someone else's shoes and share their struggles. It's a bridge that Solaire built to ensure that no undead has to walk the path to the kiln alone. Ultimately, the white-signed soapstone is a symbol of Solaire's generosity. He could have kept the secret of cooperation to himself. He could have focused only on his own son. Instead, he chose to share his knowledge with every stranger he met. He wanted the world to be a friendlier place. He wanted us to look out for each other. By carrying the soapstone, you are carrying a piece of Solaire's heart. You're carrying the belief that even at the end of time, we can still find a way to be there for one another. Part 11. Summoning Solaire. What it means in the lore. Every time you activate Solaire's gold summon sign, you are witnessing a miracle of the cycle. Item descriptions imply that these summons are not just ghosts or projections. They are versions of Solaire pulled from his own parallel journey through Lordran. When he appears in your world, he is pausing his own quest to help you with yours. He's fighting the same war in another timeline, but he has decided that your success is worth the detour. This makes every summon an act of profound sacrifice. He's risking his life and his sanity to ensure that you don't fall. His presence in major boss fights is a testament to his strength and his loyalty. Whether it's the bell gargoyles on the roof of the church or the gaping dragon in the depths of the sewers, Solaire is there. He charges into battle with a bravery that is unmatched by any other NPC. He doesn't hesitate to put himself between you and a monster. This isn't just because he's a good warrior. It's because he genuinely believes in your potential. He sees you as a fellow son in the making. He wants to see you succeed, because your victory is a victory for the light. The most iconic summon for Solaire is undoubtedly the fight against Ornstein and Smul in Anor Londo. This is one of the most difficult encounters in the game, a brutal test of skill and patience. Solaire's sign is right there in the cathedral, offering a hand when you need it most. Having him by your side changes the entire dynamic of the fight. He draws the attention of the bosses, giving you the space you need to breathe and plan. He's a rock in the middle of a storm. In that moment, he's not just an ally, he's a savior. Lore-wise, these summons suggest that Solaire is constantly moving through the world at the same pace as you. He's facing the same obstacles and overcoming the same enemies. This creates a sense of a shared narrative. You aren't just reading about his journey, you're experiencing it with him. Every time you see his gold sign, you're reminded that he is still out there, still fighting and still believing. It's a source of constant encouragement. It makes the world feel less empty and the journey feel less hopeless. The gold sign itself is a mark of his covenant. It shines with a warmth that is distinct from the white signs of other undead. It's a beacon of sunlight in a dark room. By choosing to summon him, you are participating in his philosophy. You're acknowledging that you need help and that he is the right person to provide it. This mutual trust is the foundation of the Sunlight Warriors. It's a relationship built on action rather than words. Solaire doesn't need to tell you he's your friend. He proves it every time he raises his shield in your world. Each summon is a bridge across the fragmentation of time. It's a moment where two lives intersect for a common purpose. Solaire reaches across the void and offers his hand, and you take it. This connection is the only thing that survives the cycle. The fire might fade and the kingdoms might fall, but the memory of a friend helping you through a difficult fight remains. Solaire is the one who makes these memories possible. He's the gold thread that runs through the entire experience of Lordran, connecting every player to a legacy of kindness. Section 4. The Journey Deepens. Anor Londo. Part 12. Anor Londo and the False Sun. When Solaire finally reaches Anor Londo, it should be the culmination of his life's work. He's in the city of the gods, a place of golden towers and eternal light. He sits by the bonfire in the main cathedral, resting his weary legs. But if you talk to him here, you'll notice a subtle shift in his tone. Environmental storytelling across the game suggests that the sunlight of Anor Londo is a grand deception. It's an illusion maintained by Gwyn, the last remaining god in the city. The real sun has already faded, and the city is actually shrouded in moonlight and shadow. Solaire seems to sense this falsehood on some instinctive level. He's quieter than usual, and his dialogue lacks the exuberant energy he had in the Burg. He's sitting in a room filled with light, but he doesn't seem to be finding the sun he's looking for. He's surrounded by the very things he claimed to worship, yet he feels more distant than ever. This is the first major crack in his resolve. He's realized that even the home of the gods is built on a lie. He's beginning to understand that the sun he seeks might not be found in a city or a statue. This moment in Anor Londo is a turning point for his mental state. He's traveled through the worst parts of the world to get here, believing that the Golden City held the answer to his prayers. Finding only an empty shell and a fake sun is a devastating blow. He doesn't give up, but the joy is starting to leak out of him. He's no longer staring into the sky with wonder. He's staring into the fire with a look of quiet contemplation. He's realizing that his quest is going to be much harder and much darker than he originally thought. The contrast between the bright cathedral and Solaire's growing melancholy is striking. Anor Londo is a place of absolute order and beauty, but it feels hollow. It's a museum of a dead age. Solaire doesn't fit in here anymore. He's a man of action and faith, not a part of an illusion. He's a real person in a fake world. This creates a sense of profound isolation. Even with the player nearby, Solaire feels alone in his search. He's looking for something authentic in a city that has forgotten what authenticity looks like. Gwyndolin's illusion is a cruel trick to play on someone as earnest as Solaire. It offers the appearance of success without any of the substance. Solaire came for the sun, and he was given a projection. This rejection by the city of the gods is a deep wound to his spirit. It's the moment where he starts to look inward rather than outward. If the sun isn't in Anor Londo, then where is it? This question begins to haunt him, driving him toward the darker corners of the world in a desperate attempt to find something real. Despite his disappointment, Solaire still offers his help for the fight against the castle's guardians. He puts aside his own crisis to ensure that you can move forward. This shows the true strength of his character. Even when his world is starting to fall apart, he still values the player's success. He's a knight who is loyal to the end, even if the gods he serves have abandoned him. He leaves Anor Londo with a heavy heart, but he leaves as a warrior. He's heading back into the ruins to continue a search that has suddenly become much more desperate. Part 13, the optional meeting at the Sunlight Altar. After the trials of Anor Londo, Solaire can be found back at the broken Sunlight Altar in the Undead Parish. This is a quiet, optional scene that many players miss, but it's essential for understanding his resilience. What little is confirmed suggests that he has returned here to ground himself after the disappointment of the Golden City. He's standing before the smashed statues once again, offering his membership to the Sunlight Warriors. He hasn't found his son, but he's doubling down on his commitment to the quest. He's refusing to let the failure of the gods break his spirit. This return to the altar is a powerful act of renewal. Solaire is acknowledging that his journey hasn't gone as planned, but he's choosing to start over. He's going back to the basics of his faith. He doesn't need a grand cathedral or an eternal sun to be a warrior. He only needs his shield and his conviction. By offering the player a place in his covenant here, he's inviting you to share in his stubborn hope. He's saying that even if the world is a lie, our commitment to each other can still be real. The tragedy of this scene is in how hard he is trying. You can hear the strain in his voice as he tries to maintain his jolly persona. He's forcing a laugh and speaking of future successes, but the weight of his doubt is visible. He's a man who is terrified that he's a fool, yet he's unwilling to stop being one. He'd rather die chasing a dream than live in a world without one. This persistence is what makes him so endearing and so heartbreaking. He's a hero who doesn't know when to quit. This meeting also highlights the importance of the Covenant to Solaire's identity. It's his anchor. Without the Warriors of Sunlight, he would be just another hollowed undead, lost in the ruins. The act of recruiting you is an act of self-preservation. He needs to believe that the Covenant still matters. He needs to believe that there are still people willing to fight for the light. By accepting his offer, you're giving him a reason to keep moving. You're becoming the evidence that his life's work wasn't in vain. Solaire's return to the parish is a reminder that the path to the sun is not a straight line. It's a cycle of effort and failure. He has been to the highest peak and come back to the lowest ruin. He's experienced the extremes of the world and found nothing but questions. Yet he still stands with his head held high. He's a testament to the power of the human spirit to endure even the most crushing disappointment. He's a knight who is defined not by his victory, but by his refusal to accept defeat. Ultimately, this scene at the altar is a moment of calm before the final descent. Solaire is gathering his strength for the journey into the depths of the world. He's making peace with his failure so that he can face the challenges ahead. He leaves the altar with a renewed sense of purpose, even if that purpose is now tinged with a deep, underlying sadness. He's heading toward the darkness of the demon ruins and the chaos of Izalith, still looking for a son that he's starting to fear doesn't exist. Section 5. The Descent, Doubt and Darkness, Part 14. I did not find my own son, not in Anor Londo, nor in Blighttown. The dialogue Solaire offers at the Sunlight Altar after his return from Anor Londo is one of the most revealing moments in his story. Dialogue from this character implies that the weight of his failures is finally starting to crush him. He laughs at himself, a self-deprecating sound that is a far cry from his earlier cheerfulness. He openly acknowledges that he might be a fool for chasing a son that he cannot find. He lists the places he has searched, and it's a list of the most horrific locations in Lordran. He has been to the poisonous swamps of Blighttown and the lightless tomb of the Gravelord. This list is a testament to the sheer physical and mental toll of his quest. These are not places for the faint of heart. They are areas where the very atmosphere is designed to break a person. Solaire has navigated the filth of the sewers and the pitch-black darkness of the giants' graves, all while keeping his eyes open for a son. The fact that he found nothing but shadow in those places is a devastating realization. He's realized that the sun isn't just hidden. It might be entirely absent from the world he's in. Despite this realization, he refuses to stop his search. He tells the player that he must continue, that he cannot give up now. This is the moment where his hope turns into something more dangerous. It's no longer a healthy pursuit of a goal. It's a desperate, obsessive need. He's looking for a son because he has nothing else left. He has burned every bridge and left every home behind. If he stops looking, he has to face the reality of what he has become. An undead man, lost in a dying world, with no future. The self-deprecating laugh is a sign that he's starting to lose his grip on his persona. He's seeing the absurdity of his situation. He's a knight in shiny armor, looking for the sun in a literal sewer. He knows it's ridiculous, and yet he can't stop. This internal conflict is what drives the next stage of his journey. He's moving forward out of sheer momentum rather than conviction. He's heading toward the demon ruins because it's the only place he hasn't looked yet. He's digging deeper into the earth because the sky has failed him. This speech marks the end of Solaire's innocence. He's no longer the naive traveler from the Berg. He's a man who has seen the worst of the world and been rejected by the best of it. His journey has become a solitary march into the depths. While he still offers the player membership in his covenant, he seems less concerned with your journey and more focused on his own impending failure. He's starting to hollow from the inside out, his purpose eroding under the weight of 1,000 disappointments. The mention of the Tomb of the Giants is particularly haunting. It's a place where light literally cannot exist, a void of death and stone. Solaire went there looking for the sun. This shows the level of desperation he had already reached before Anor Londo. He was willing to walk into the mouth of the Gravelord himself on the off chance that a sunbeam was hiding in the dark. He's a man who has explored every inch of the world's misery and come up empty. He's a hero who is running out of world to search. Part 15. The Centipede Demon. Bonfire. Why? After the battle with the Centipede Demon, the traveler finds Solaire sitting alone by a quiet bonfire in the demon ruins. The change in his spirit is immediate and devastating. The knight who once offered long, warm speeches about the beauty of cooperation is now almost entirely silent. His posture is slumped, and his gaze is fixed on the flames in a way that suggests he's no longer seeing the world around him. Dialogue from this character suggests that his mental resolve has finally reached a breaking point. He repeats a single, haunting question over and over to himself. Why? It's a word that carries the weight of every failure he's experienced since arriving in this cursed land. This moment is a perfect example of how the series handles the slow hollowing of the human soul. It isn't a sudden transformation into a monster, but a gradual erosion of the things that make a person whole. Solaire is losing his purpose, and without that anchor, he's drifting toward the dark. The silence in his voice is more terrifying than any scream because it represents the death of his hope. He's realized that his search for the sun might have been a fool's errand. The records indicate that this understated tragedy was designed to show the reality of the Undead Curse. It's a quiet, lonely process of forgetting why you started the journey in the first place. The environment of the ruins adds to the crushing weight of the scene. He's surrounded by the stone remains of a failed civilization, far from the light he craves. The heat is stifling and the shadows are long. Solaire looks out of place in his shiny armor, a relic of a knightly world that has no power here. He's realized that he's traveled to the very bottom of the world and found nothing but more fire and more death. The fragments of lore around this point toward a deep psychological collapse. He's no longer talking to the player. He's talking to the void, and the void isn't answering. What makes this moment so effective is its simplicity. There's no dramatic music or cinematic flair. There's only the crackle of the fire and the broken murmur of a man who has given everything for a dream that is failing him. It's a raw look at what happens when a person's identity is tied entirely to a goal they can't reach. Solaire isn't just tired, he's hollowed in a spiritual sense. He's still physically present, but the light that made him Solaire is starting to flicker out. It's a transition from a hero of sunlight to a man who is afraid of the dark. The player is forced to watch this decline without any way to offer comfort. You can't give him a reason to keep moving, and you can't fix the doubt in his mind. You've relied on his strength for so long that seeing him like this feels like a personal betrayal by the world itself. It reminds us that even the strongest individuals are subject to the same decay as the lowliest hollows. Solaire's journey has become a mirror for the fading of the first flame. Both are running out of fuel, and both are reaching a cold, inevitable end. He sits there in the red glow, a knight who has run out of words. This bonfire represents the last time we see Solaire as the person we knew. After this, his path leads into the deepest pits of lost Izalith, where his doubt will be replaced by a terrifying new certainty. But here, in the silence of the ruins, we see the most human version of the knight. He's a man who is genuinely lost. He's a man who is asking a question that the gods themselves couldn't answer. By the time he stands up to leave this fire, he's no longer looking for a god. He's looking for any light that will stop the screaming in his head. Part 16, Lost Izalith, the worst place in the world to find a sun. Lost Izalith is a tomb of ambition and a monument to cosmic failure. It's the ruins of the Witch of Izalith's desperate attempt to recreate the first flame, a catastrophe that birthed the demons and warped the very fabric of life. Environmental storytelling across the game suggests that this city is the source of a chaotic corruption that has no cure. It's a landscape of twisted roots, molten lava, and statues that have melted into unrecognizable shapes. It's the deepest, darkest, and most chaotic place in all of Lordran. It's a place where the sun has never reached and never will. The fact that Solaire is searching for his son here is the ultimate proof of his desperation. He's out of options and out of time. He's searched the sky, the cathedrals, and the forests. And now he's digging through the garbage of a dead age. Based on what the games show, His mind has narrowed to a single, frantic point. He's convinced that the sun must be hiding in the one place he hasn't looked. He's wandering through the toxic swamps and the fire fields, because he's lost the ability to distinguish between a holy mission and a suicidal obsession. The city is a mockery of the order that Solaire once served. While Anor Londo was a place of golden symmetry, Izalith is a place of organic rot and wild, flickering fire. It represents everything that the Sunlight Warriors were supposed to oppose. Yet, Solaire walks through it as if he's on a holy pilgrimage. He's no longer looking for the magnificent father. He's looking for a survival mechanism. He needs the sun to be here, because if it isn't, his entire journey was a lie. He's a man standing in a burning house, looking for a way to keep the lights on. The creatures that roam these ruins are the children of a failed fire. They are twisted, mindless, and aggressive, reflecting the chaos that created them. Solaire is moving through this nightmare without a shield for his mind. He's vulnerable to the very madness that destroyed the witch and her daughters. The tragedy of his search is that he's looking for salvation in a place that offers nothing but mutation. He's a knight of light who has descended into a pit of shadow, and the shadows are starting to look like the things he's been chasing. What little is confirmed suggests that Solaire's isolation in this area is absolute. He doesn't appear as a summon for the local threats, and he doesn't leave any signs of his presence. He's truly alone in the labyrinth. The heat of the lava and the stifling atmosphere of the roots have stripped away the last of his knightly poise. He's a ghost haunting a city that died 1,000 years ago. His quest has become a death march, a lonely trek toward a destination that doesn't exist. He's looking for the sun in a world of cinders. The player feels the weight of this location as they follow Solaire's trail. Every dragon butt and every chaos eater is a reminder of how far the world has fallen. For Solaire to be here is a sign that the cycle has already won. He's been consumed by the very darkness he tried to ignore. He's heading toward the bridge that connects the ruins to the heart of the city, a place where the final trap of the chaos flame is waiting for him. He's walking toward a light that isn't divine, but parasitic. He's walking toward the end of his story. Section 6. The Sunlight Maggot Tragedy, Part 17. What the Sunlight Maggot actually is. The Sunlight Maggot is a grotesque inversion of everything Solaire has spent his life pursuing. It's a chaos bug, a simple parasite, born from the corruption of Izalith, that emits a bright, steady light when it attaches itself to a host. Item descriptions imply that this creature has no divine spark and no cosmic significance. It's a mindless worm that glows because of a biological accident. It represents the cold reality of a world that doesn't care about your prayers. While Solaire was looking for a cosmic purpose, the world offered him a glowing insect. This parasite is the ultimate mockery of the sun. Solaire wanted a magnificent father, a source of strength and guidance that would shine for everyone. Instead, he found a parasite that only shines for him because it's eating his brain. It's a localized, selfish light that requires the destruction of the person carrying it. The contrast is devastating in its simplicity, and one is a holy fire that builds civilizations. The other is a chaos bug that lives in a basement. Solaire's tragedy is that he was so desperate for the former that he couldn't see the horror of the latter. The light emitted by the maggot is blindingly white, a sharp contrast to the warm, gold glow of a true sunlight warrior. It's a light that reveals nothing but the host's own misery. When the maggot settles on a person's head, it replaces their thoughts with a single, overwhelming focus on the glow. It offers a false sense of peace by stripping away the ability to think. For Solaire, whose mind was filled with the agonizing questions of his hollowing, the maggot was a relief. It stopped the doubt by replacing it with a delusion. Based on what the games show, the maggot is not a gift, but a disease. It's a physical manifestation of the chaos that destroyed the city. By wearing it, Solaire becomes a part of the very rot he was trying to escape. He looks like a parody of himself, a knight with a crown of pulsing flesh. The maggot is the physical proof that in Lordran, hope can be a trap. If you look for the light with too much desperation, you will eventually find a version of it that is designed to kill you. It's the ultimate evidence of a world that has gone wrong. The maggot's item description highlights its ordinary and pathetic nature. It's just a bug. There's no magic in it, only the residue of a failed fire. The fact that Solaire mistook this creature for his son is the most painful part of his story. It shows how far his reason had already eroded before he even found the parasite. He was so hungry for a sign that he accepted a parasite as a god. He traded his humanity for a worm that glows in the dark. It's a bleak commentary on the nature of faith in a dying world. The player sees this horror firsthand if they follow the standard path. Solaire stands on the bridge with the creature on his head, his identity already erased by the bug's influence. He's found his son, but he's lost himself. The light of the maggot illuminates the dark tunnel, but it only shows us the shell of a man we once loved. It's a visual representation of a dream that has become a nightmare. Solaire's son isn't in the sky. It's a parasite burrowing into his skull. It's the most horrific end possible for the most hopeful character in the game. Part 18. Finally, I have found it. My very own son. I am the sun. When the player meets Solaire on the bridge in Lost Izalith, his dialogue confirms the total collapse of his sanity. He speaks with a manic, unearned joy that is terrifying to hear. He tells the player that he has finally found it, his very own son. He claims that he has become the sun itself. These are the words of a man who has broken completely. He isn't technically hollowed in the traditional sense, as he still possesses a voice and a singular drive. But his purpose has become a delusion so powerful that it has replaced his reality. Every line he says in this encounter is a twisted echo of his earlier optimism. When he says he is the sun, he's finally achieving the possessive goal he mentioned in the Burg. He has found something that he alone can claim. But the price of this ownership was his mind. He's happy because he can no longer feel the weight of his failure. He's happy because the parasite has turned off the part of his brain that remembers his friends or his code. It's a look at what hope looks like when it cracks under too much pressure. It turns into a shield of madness. He attacks the player with a ferocity that is fueled by his newfound certainty. He sees you not as a friend, but as a threat to his light. He's protecting his son with the same bravery he once used to protect you. This is the ultimate tragedy of his character. His best qualities, his loyalty, and his strength are now being used to defend a parasite. He's a warrior of sunlight to the very end, but the sun he serves is a lie. He's a man who has achieved his dream, only to find that the dream is a monster. The lines he speaks reveal the depths of his isolation. He doesn't ask for your help or offer a greeting. He only celebrates his own completion. He's found the anchor he was looking for, but it's an anchor that has pulled him to the bottom of the sea. By claiming to be the sun, he's cutting himself off from the rest of humanity. He no longer needs jolly cooperation because he believes he is the source of all light. He's become the god he was looking for, but in a way that makes him a monster to everyone else. This dialogue is a masterclass in psychological horror. Solaire sounds genuinely satisfied, which makes the visual of the maggot on his head even harder to bear. He's found peace, but it's the peace of a lobotomy. He's found his son, but it's a son that requires him to kill his only friend. It's a raw look at the danger of absolute conviction. Solaire's faith was so strong that it allowed him to survive the worst of Lordran, but it also made him vulnerable to the first lie that offered him a resolution. The fight ends with his death, but his dialogue doesn't change as he falls. He dies believing he has won. He dies with the light of the maggot in his eyes, still convinced that he is the son. It's a merciful end in some ways, as he never has to face the reality of his failure. But for the player, it's a traumatic conclusion. You've had to kill the one person who made the world feel warm. You've had to extinguish the only light that was left in the dark. Solaire found his son, and you had to put it out. Part 19. Why Miyazaki designed this as the general norm. The tragic fate of Solaire was not an accident of game design, but a deliberate choice by the director. Hidetaka Miyazaki has confirmed in interviews that he expected most players to find Solaire in this broken state. The records indicate that he viewed the maggot ending as the general norm for the character's journey. It was meant to be the natural conclusion to a story about hope in a world of despair. Miyazaki designed a character that was almost universally beloved, specifically to have him die in madness, unless the player discovered an extremely obscure and difficult solution. This design choice serves a specific philosophical purpose. It reinforces the idea that in Lordran, tragedy is the default state of existence. If the most hopeful, strongest, and kindest character cannot survive the journey with his mind intact, then the world itself is fundamentally broken. Solaire's fall is a warning to the player. It shows that even the most noble intentions can lead to disaster if they aren't tempered with reality. By making Solaire's salvation a hidden secret, Miyazaki made the tragedy feel inevitable. He wanted the player to feel the weight of a world that crushes heroes. The solution to save Solaire is absurdly complicated and nearly invisible to a blind playthrough. It requires 30 humanity, a specific covenant, and a hidden door in a side corridor. From Software hid this path so deeply because they wanted the player to earn their hope. Salvation in Dark Souls is not something that is handed to you. It's something you have to claw out of the darkness. By making the good ending so rare, the director made the common tragedy of Solaire's madness much more significant. It's a statement on how rare genuine success is in a land governed by the cycle. This intended outcome also makes the player's relationship with Solaire more complex. You aren't just a witness to his journey. You are the one who failed to save him. Unless you knew the secret, you allowed your friend to walk into a trap. This creates a sense of guilt that lingers long after the game is over. It forces the player to engage with the world's mechanics on a deeper level. To save Solaire, you have to break the rules of a normal journey. You have to go out of your way to interfere with fate. The direct quote from the Game no Shokutaku interview confirms that Solaire's fall was meant to be a pivotal emotional moment for the community. Miyazaki knew that players would form a bond with the knight, and he used that bond to deliver a crushing blow. It's a reminder that the world of Dark Souls is indifferent to your feelings. It doesn't care that Solaire is a good man. It only cares about the entropy of the flame and the hunger of the chaos. Solaire was the lamb sacrificed to show the player exactly what kind of world they were trying to save. Ultimately, this design philosophy is why the series resonates so deeply. It doesn't offer easy answers or guaranteed happy endings. It shows a world that is harsh, unfair, and often cruel. Solaire's descent into madness is the most honest story the game tells. He is a man who tried his best and was destroyed by a world that didn't have room for his light. By making this the general norm, Miyazaki ensured that Solaire would be remembered not just for his cheerfulness, but for the profound tragedy of his end. Part 20. Killing Solaire. What the player takes from him. When you finally defeat Solaire in the tunnel of Lost Izalith, the silence that follows is more than just the end of a boss fight. You are left alone with the body of your friend, and as an undead in Lordran, you do the only thing you can. You loot his identity. You receive his armor, his shield, his sword, and his talisman. You strip him of the things that made him Solaire. The fragments of lore around this point toward a devastating realization. You aren't just taking gear, you're taking the physical evidence of a man who tried to be more than he was. The sunlight straight sword is perhaps the most heartbreaking item in the entire game. Its description claims that it contains the very power of the sun, but the actual stats of the weapon reveal a different truth. It is featureless, ordinary, and unremarkable. It has no magical properties and no hidden strength. It is a simple piece of steel that Solaire believed was divine. The sun he thought he had found in his sword never actually existed. It was just a normal blade carried by a man with an extraordinary amount of faith. By taking this sword, you are holding the proof of his delusion. His armor tells a similar story. It's described as being made of high-quality materials, but it offers no special protections or enchantments. The sun painted on the chest was done by Solaire himself, not by a god or a priest. He was a man who manufactured his own mythology. He wasn't a divine being in disguise. He was a human who decided to act like a god. This makes his journey much more impressive, but also much more tragic. He achieved everything he did through sheer training and willpower, only to be undone by a simple bug. Looting Solaire feels like an act of desecration. You are wearing the clothes of a man you just killed, a man who would have given them to you willingly if you had asked. By putting on his helmet, you are seeing the world through the eyes of a failure. You are carrying his painted sun into the final battle, a symbol of a dream that ended in a dark hallway. The gear doesn't make you a better warrior. It just makes you a reminder of what happens to heroes in Lordran. You've inherited his items, but you've also inherited his burden of failure. The talisman you take from him is a tool for miracles, but even it feels hollow now. It's a reminder of the lightning bolts he used to throw in your defense. Now, it's just a piece of wood in your inventory. Everything Solaire left behind confirms that he was just a person. He didn't have a secret source of power. He only had his conviction. When you loot his body, you are confronting the fact that there is no magic solution to the world's problems. Even a man as good as Solaire can be reduced to a pile of unremarkable loot. This moment of looting is where the player truly understands the weight of the cycle. In Lordran, you don't find treasures, you find remains. Every piece of equipment you wear was once owned by someone who didn't make it. Solaire is just the most recent victim in a long line of travelers who fell short of the flame. By taking his identity, you are accepting that you are the one who continues. You are the one who carries his ordinary sword into the kiln. You are the one who has to finish the job that he couldn't even start. Section 7. The Path Where Solaire Lives. Part 21. How to Save Him. The Daughter of Chaos and the Hidden Door. Saving Solaire requires an absurd and nearly invisible chain of requirements that most players will never discover on their own. It forces the player to step outside the normal flow of the game and engage in a massive act of self-sacrifice. You must join the Daughter of Chaos Covenant and offer 30 humanity to the Fair Lady, a broken and blind spider woman who sits in a hidden chamber. This doesn't just grant you a rank, it opens a massive stone door in a locked corridor that leads directly to the bridge where the sunlight maggot waits. This requirement is a test of the player's own commitment to the philosophy of jolly cooperation. You have to give up a staggering amount of a precious resource to help a character who hasn't even asked for it. You have to do this without any guarantee that it will actually work. Based on what the games show, this is the only way to intervene in Solaire's fate. It's a moment where the game asks you if you're willing to be a hero for someone else, even if it costs you everything. It's a hidden path to salvation in a world that usually offers only damnation. By opening the door and killing the specific red-eyed chaos bug before Solaire reaches the bridge, you prevent the tragedy from ever happening. You kill the parasite before it can find its host. You save Solaire's mind, but you do it by committing an act of cosmic interference. You are breaking the general norm of the world to protect your friend. This path is hidden so deeply because hope in Lordran is a fragile, secret thing. It's not something that happens by accident. It's something you have to choose to create through immense effort. The hidden door itself is a symbol of the world's relationship with mercy. It's tucked away in a corner of the ruins, far from the main path to the boss. It's a place that most players would ignore as they rush toward the end of the game. Finding it requires curiosity, patience, and a willingness to explore the darkest corners of the world for a non-selfish reason. By choosing this path, you are proving that you are more than just a collector of souls. You are a person who values another person's life more than your own progress. What little is confirmed suggests that this is the only way Solaire survives with his sanity intact. But even this victory is tinged with the series' signature melancholy. You've saved his life, but you haven't given him his son. You've only removed the lie that would have destroyed him. Solaire remains a broken man, sitting in the dark and wondering why his journey has come to nothing. You've given him a chance to reach the end, but you've also forced him to face the reality of his own failure. Saving him doesn't mean he lives happily ever after. This secret path is a testament to the power of the player's choice. In a game governed by cycles and fate, saving Solaire is the ultimate act of defiance. You are refusing to accept the tragedy that Miyazaki designed for you. You are saying that even in a world of cinders, a friend is worth 30 humanity and a hidden door. It's a beautiful, complicated, and deeply hidden moment of grace. It represents the best of the community's spirit, the desire to find a way through the dark for those who cannot find it themselves. Part 22. Saved but broken. Was it all a lie? Even when you kill the maggot before Solaire finds it, the reunion is far from a joyous occasion. You find him sitting at the shortcut door, his spirit visibly shattered. He doesn't offer a cheerful greeting or a word of thanks for his life being spared. Instead, his dialogue is devastated, reflecting the total loss of the internal light that once drove him forward. The man who carried the heaviest burden of hope in Lordran has finally been crushed by the weight of his own silence. He's sane, but he's empty, having been robbed of even his delusion without being given a real son to replace it. The dialogue from this character implies that he's reached a state of existential despair that's almost as dangerous as hollowing itself. He asks a single, crushing question. Was it all a lie? This inquiry isn't just about the maggot or the city of Izalith, but about his entire life's mission. He's questioning whether the son he sought ever existed, or if he was simply a fool chasing a phantom across a graveyard. The silence that follows his words is the sound of a purpose being extinguished. Saving him from the parasite didn't mean saving him from the reality of the fading world. This moment reveals the cruel paradox of Solaire's journey. His sanity depends on his purpose, but his purpose was built on a dream that the world couldn't fulfill. By preventing the madness of the maggot, you forced Solaire to confront the cold truth of his failure. He's now a man who has outlived his own reason for being. The knightly confidence that once defined him has been replaced by a hollowed grief. He sits in the shadows of the shortcut door, a survivor of a war that's already been lost. The environmental storytelling of this encounter emphasizes his isolation. He's sitting in a locked corridor, far from the sky and the light. He looks like a discarded piece of history, a knight who has finally run out of world to explore. His armor, once a symbol of his bright faith, now appears as a heavy burden. The painted sun on his chest is a reminder of a promise he couldn't keep to himself. He's reached the end of his path, and he's found that there's nothing waiting for him there but more questions. There's a profound sadness in seeing Solaire in this state. You've saved his life, but in doing so, you've taken away the one thing that made his life bearable. The delusion of the maggot would have given him a false triumph. The truth of the shortcut door gives him only a lingering, bitter awareness. He's a casualty of the cycle who is still walking. This encounter serves as a reminder that mercy in Lordran is a complicated thing. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for a friend is to let them find their own end. Yet, despite this collapse, Solaire doesn't fully give up. He remains at the door, a broken but enduring presence. He's been robbed of his son, but he hasn't yet surrendered to the mindless hollowing of the lost. He's waiting for something, even if he doesn't know what it is. This period of quiet devastation is the transition between his old life as a seeker and his final role in the story. He's preparing to move toward the kiln of the first flame, not as a seeker of his own son, but as a companion for yours. Part 23, the final battle at the kiln of the first flame. The ultimate reward for saving Solaire is the appearance of his summon sign at the very end of the world. In the ash-covered grounds of the kiln of the first flame, just before the fog gate of the final boss, his gold sign shines with a renewed intensity. What the games establish is that Solaire has moved past his despair to fulfill his ultimate role as a warrior of sunlight. When you pull him into your world here, he appears almost solid, present in a way that no other summon in the trilogy can match. He's found a new purpose in helping you finish the cycle. The fight against Gwyn is a battle between three figures who are all bound by the same fire. Gwyn is the god who burned himself to ash to keep the age from ending, and Solaire is the knight who crossed worlds to find a light of his own. By fighting alongside you, Solaire is finally confronting the source of the sunlight he spent his life worshipping. He sees the hollowed, charred husk of his god and realizes the true cost of the age. This is the final clarification of his quest, a moment where the myth of the sun meets the reality of the cinder. In this battle, Solaire fights with a calm efficiency that suggests he's found a measure of peace. He isn't the manic madman of the maggot encounter, nor is he the broken seeker of the shortcut door. He's a comrade, a true warrior who is standing at the edge of the world to support a friend. Every lightning bolt he hurls at Gwyn is an act of closure. He's helping to end the suffering of a god who was too afraid to let go, and in doing so, he's finding his own freedom from the fear. The imagery of Solaire and the player standing over the defeated Lord of Cinder is the emotional peak of the series. Two men who refuse to stop moving have reached the heart of the cycle. Solaire has survived the worst that Lordran could throw at him, and he's done so with his humanity intact. He's found a sun in the form of a shared victory, a light that isn't a parasite or a lie, but a genuine connection across the boundaries of time. He's fulfilled the vow of jolly cooperation in the most significant way possible. Based on what the games show, this summons is the final time we see Solaire in our own world. Once the battle is over, he returns to his own timeline to face the same choice that you now face. The bond you built through the Berg and the ruins has culminated in this moment of ash and flame. Solaire has proven that even in a world designed to break specific people, an individual can still choose to stand tall. He's the one character who truly beats the hollowing process by finding a purpose that transcends his own ego. This final battle reframes Solaire's entire tragedy. He didn't find the sun he was looking for in the places he expected, but he found something better. He found a reason to stay human in the act of helping someone else reach the end. He's no longer the forgotten knight, but the most essential ally in the history of the Kiln. As he fades back into his own world, he carries with him the strength of your shared struggle. He's moved from a seeker of light to a source of light himself. Section 8. What happens after Part 24? Miyazaki's canon. He links the flame in his own world. The story of Solaire doesn't end with the credits of the first game. In a direct quote from the Game no Shokutaku interview, Hidetaka Miyazaki confirmed that if Solaire survives his journey, he returns to his own world and links the first flame. This is one of the most significant pieces of outside lore in the franchise. By linking the fire, Solaire becomes a Lord of Cinder in his own timeline, effectively becoming the sun he spent his entire life searching for. He dies in the process, but he dies achieving the ultimate state of light. What little is confirmed suggests that this was the true sun Solaire was meant to find. He didn't find it in the sky, in a god, or in a parasite, but in the act of personal sacrifice. His obsession was never about ego. It was about finding a way to matter in a world that was fading to grey. By burning himself to sustain the age, he became the very thing he worshipped, a magnificent father for the next generation. His tragedy is resolved through a final act of duty that justifies every step of his long and painful journey. This canon ending changes how we interpret his earlier words about finding his very own sun. It wasn't something he could discover, it was something he had to create. The fire inside him was always the sun he was looking for, and it only needed the spark of the kiln to ignite. This gives his character a layer of cosmic importance that few other characters possess. He isn't just a helpful knight, he's a savior of his own reality, a man who succeeded where even the gods eventually failed. He found his sun by becoming the fuel. The records indicate that this sacrifice is what allowed Solaire's influence to persist through the subsequent games. His choice to link the fire in his own world mirrors the choice Gwyn made at the beginning of the age, but without the underlying fear. Solaire's linking is framed as a triumph of the spirit, rather than a desperate attempt to cling to power. He accepted his end with the same arms-wide-open posture he used on the balcony in the Berg. He became the sun he loved, and in doing so, he reached the highest peak of the cycle. This resolution also highlights the nature of time in the series. Because worlds overlap, Solaire can be a Lord of Cinder in his timeline, while still being a summonable ally in yours. He exists in a state of perpetual heroic recurrence, always seeking and always sacrificing. This is the canon fate of the knight who crossed worlds. He didn't just survive Lordran, he conquered the cycle by becoming its primary engine. He proved that the only way to find your own sun is to be willing to burn for it. Ultimately, Solaire's fate as a Lord of Cinder is the ultimate expression of his philosophy. He helped you reach your end, and then he went back to finish his own. He took the lesson of jolly cooperation and applied it to the entire world, offering his life so that the fire might continue. He died as he lived, staring into the light and moving forward without hesitation. He found his sun, and for 1,000 years in his world, the light remained on because he was there. It's the most beautiful ending any character in the trilogy receives. Section 9. Who was Solaire? The Theories. Part 25. The Gwyn's Firstborn. Theory: why everyone believed it. For years, following the release of the first game, the most popular theory in the community was that Solaire was the secret firstborn son of Gwyn. The evidence points toward a massive amount of circumstantial detail that made this theory feel almost confirmed. Solaire possessed an unnatural strength and the ability to hurl lightning bolts, miracles that were specifically associated with the god of war who'd been erased from history. He was obsessed with the sun and prayed at the exact altars dedicated to the lost god, suggesting a deep connection to a father he no longer remembered. The records indicate that the Ring of the Sun's firstborn and the Sunlight Medal descriptions fueled this belief. The ring confirmed that Gwyn's eldest son was a god of war who lost his status for his foolishness, while the medals showed the symbol of the sunlight warriors that Solaire lead. It felt narratively perfect that the most helpful man in the world was actually a fallen god in disguise, trying to find his way back to the grace he'd lost. This theory gave Solaire a mythology that matched the weight of his tragedy, turning his quest into a story of divine redemption. Even physical similarities between the statues of the firstborn and Solaire's own equipment were cited as proof. The sun on Solaire's chest and his unique shield were seen as remnants of his former life in Anor Londo. It seemed impossible that a mere human could withstand the horrors of Lordran with such ease and arrive at the kiln alongside the player. The community largely accepted that Solaire was the nameless god, stripped of his name but not his nature, wandering the ruins of his father's kingdom as an undead. This theory added a layer of profound irony to his interactions with the player. If he was the firstborn, then every time he helped you, he was assisting the person who would eventually replace his father. It made his potential madness in Lost Izalith even more devastating, as a god of light was destroyed by a simple chaos parasite. The idea of a lost prince of sunlight looking for his own son in the literal trash of the world resonated with the themes of the game. It was a story of a family falling apart. Based on what the games show, the developers seem to encourage this interpretation through the placement of items and characters. Solaire's presence near the sunlight altar and his specific dialogue about the sun being a magnificent father were seen as direct hints. For a long time, this wasn't just a fan theory. It was the lens through which most players understood the character. It provided an answer to the question of who Solaire was and why he was so different from everyone else in the dying world. However, the games never explicitly stated the connection, leaving the final piece of the puzzle missing. This ambiguity was a deliberate feature of Miyazaki's world-building, allowing the player to assemble their own truth from the fragments. Solaire remained a man of mystery, his true identity buried under 1,000 years of ash and the deliberate erasure of history. For years, the legend of the firstborn son was the only son the community needed to explain the Night of Astora. Part 26, Dark Souls. 3 and the Nameless King. The theory dies. The long-held belief that Solaire was Gwyn's firstborn was finally and quietly dismantled with the release of Dark Souls 3. The introduction of the Nameless King as a boss in Archdragon Peak provided a new candidate for the lost god of war. What little is confirmed suggests that the Nameless King is the true firstborn, she having been exiled for his alliance with the dragons he was supposed to hunt. The soul of the Nameless King and the equipment found in his arena confirmed his identity through dragon slayer imagery and lightning miracles that Solaire could never match in scale. Environmental storytelling across the game points toward a history that Solaire was never a part of. The Nameless King is a massive, godlike figure who rides a storm drake and possesses the literal power of the storm, a far cry from the human-sized knight in painted armor. Dark Souls 3 shifted the firstborn identity toward a character defined by betrayal and ancient combat, leaving Solaire's connection without its primary foundation. The community's most beloved theory was proven wrong, not by a single line of dialogue, but by the physical presence of the true god. This revelation made Solaire's story more tragic, not less. If he wasn't a god, then he had no divine right to the son he was searching for. He was just a man with a dream that was too big for his reality. The wrongness of the theory highlights the desperation of the community to find a happy truth in a world that offers neither. Solaire wasn't a fallen prince reclaiming his throne. He was an ordinary human being who'd convinced himself that he was special. The loss of his mythology leaves him standing alone as a simple undead. The fragments of lore around this point toward a world where legacy is often a burden and history is a series of lies. By separating Solaire from the firstborn, the games forced us to look at him as he truly was, a knight from Astora with a shield and a dream. He was worshipping at the altars of a god who was actually a dragon-riding warrior living in the clouds, someone who likely never knew Solaire existed. This disconnection is the essence of the series' melancholy. Solaire was a fan of a legend that had no room for him. Dialogue from this character in the first game takes on a new meaning after the Nameless King is revealed. His magnificent father was a god who'd already abandoned the world and its people. Solaire was chasing a memory of a family that had already been erased. The firstborn identity was a shield we gave him to protect him from the reality of his own insignificance. With that shield gone, Solaire becomes a much more vulnerable figure. He's not a god in exile, he's a human in a void. Ultimately, being wrong about Solaire's identity is the final lesson the series teaches its players. It reminds us that we cannot rely on easy answers or legendary bloodlines to save us. Solaire's strength didn't come from his father. It came from his own heart and his own training. He was a man who decided that the sun was worth everything, even if the sun didn't know he was looking for it. The death of the theory is the birth of the real Solaire, a hero who exists without the need for a divine title. Part 27. The Truth, Just a Man. The ultimate truth revealed about Solaire across the trilogy is the most powerful detail of all. He was just a man. Item descriptions for his equipment confirm that his armor has no enchantments, his shield has no special power, and his talisman is ordinary. Every holy symbol on his gear, including the sun on his chest, was painted by his own hand using standard pigments. He didn't have the divine spark of a lord's soul or the inherent magic of a god's bloodline. His incredible ability to survive the horrors of Lordran and hurl lightning bolts came from training, faith, and willpower alone. This realization reframes his entire journey as a triumph of human spirit over cosmic indifference. Solaire was not a god in disguise playing a game with mortals. He was a human being who looked at a dying world and decided it wasn't enough. He deliberately chose the curse so he could fight for something he believed in, and he did it with tools that any other undead could have carried. He proved that the power of the sun isn't found in a lineage, but in the conviction of the person who carries the light. He was the most extraordinary person in Lordran because he was the most ordinary. What little is confirmed suggests that Solaire is the ultimate rebuttal to Gwyn's fear of the dark. Gwyn believed that humanity was a threat that needed to be contained and used as fuel. Solaire, a simple human, showed that humanity could be a source of warmth and salvation through jolly cooperation. He used the very curse that Gwyn feared to bridge the gaps between worlds and help others reach the kiln. He was the person Gwyn was most afraid of, a human who didn't need a god to find his way. Based on what the games show, Solaire's simplicity is his greatest strength. He wasn't weighed down by the complex political maneuvers of the Four Kings or the scientific madness of Seath. He didn't have a legacy to protect or a city to rule. He had a straight sword, a painted sun, and a dream. This lack of ego allowed him to stay sane long after more powerful beings had hollowed. He was the heart of the world because he was the only one who still knew how to be a person. The fragments of lore around this point toward a world where being just a man is the highest possible achievement. Solaire didn't need a divine throne in Anor Londo to be a hero. He found his heroism on the broken balconies of the Burg and the poisonous floors of the swamp. He was a self-made saint in a world that had forgotten what sanctity looked like. By the time he reaches the end of his journey, he's outshone every god he ever worshipped. He's the human sun that the Age of Fire didn't know it needed. Ultimately, Solaire's story is the story of every player who picks up the controller. We are all just a human facing a world that's much bigger and much darker than we are. We don't have divine powers, only the willingness to keep moving and the hope of finding someone to help us along the way. Solaire is our representative in the lore, the proof that we belong in the kiln as much as any lord. He was a human who decided the sun was worth everything, and by the end, he proved it by becoming the very light he sought. Section 10. The Legacy, Part 28. Why Solaire still resonates. Solaire of Astora remains the most iconic character in the entire trilogy, a legacy that's confirmed by his presence across all three games and their sequels. In Dark Souls 2, the Heirs of the Sun Covenant continues his tradition of jolly cooperation, keeping his philosophy alive in a land that's forgotten his name. In Dark Souls 3, the Warriors of Sunlight return once more, and the Sunlight Straightsword appears as a relic of a past that still offers strength to the faithful. He's become more than a character. He's become the emotional heart of a franchise built on the bones of despair. The reason he resonates so deeply is that he's the only truly selfless light in a world of shadow. While every other faction is fighting for power, territory, or a way to prolong their own existence, Solaire is only fighting to help you. He offers his hand to strangers across collapsing worlds for no reward other than the act itself. In a series that's often defined by its difficulty and its cruelty, Solaire is the one who reminds us that kindness is a choice we can still make. He's the human connection that makes the lonely journey of the undead bearable. What little is confirmed suggests that Solaire is the antidote to the cynicism of the cycle. He doesn't care if the fire is a lie or if the dark is inevitable. He only cares about the person standing next to him. He represents the radical idea that we are stronger together than we are apart, even when the world is ending. This philosophy of jolly cooperation has transcended the games to become a core value of the real community. He's the symbol of every summon sign and every shared victory, a reminder that we are never truly alone in the dark. The records indicate that his impact is visible in everything from memes to tattoos and fan art. He's become a universal symbol for hope and persistence, his posture a gesture of defiance against a world that wants us to bow our heads. He's the character who tells us that it's okay to be a fool for a dream, as long as that dream brings a little light to someone else. He's the emotional weight that gives the final choice at the kiln its meaning. He's the friend who waited for us when everyone else had already hollowed. Solaire's story is the story of the best of humanity surviving the worst of the gods. He was a man who refused to stop believing in the sun even when the sun was gone. He proved that the only thing that matters in a dying world is how we treat the people we meet along the way. He's the reason we still praise the sun, not because of a god in a cathedral, but because of a knight on a balcony who once offered us a hand. He's the legacy of hope that the cycle could never consume. Ultimately, Solaire still matters because he's the answer to the question the trilogy kept asking. In a world of cinders and ash, what's left worth saving? Solaire's answer was simple: each other. He's the knight who found his son in the act of being human, and he invites us to do the same. As long as there's an undead struggling through the ruins, Solaire will be there, staring into the light and waiting for a friend. He's the heart of the journey, and he'll never truly fade.